And our problems are many, my people. Divisions, tribalism, nonchalant attitude, mediocrity, looking at Igbos as if they are the problems of the country, our failures of leadership, indiscipline, corruption, nepotism, ethnic bigotry, insincerity, irresponsibility, poor standards of education, poor roads, poor public amenities, no hospitals, poor healthcare service, a death of our think tanks, allowing the best of us to get to live and the worst of us to continue to thrive. These are many more the problems we have as a people. These are many more the issues we have. These levels of complacency as it concerns what ordinarily should constitute our life down here is a thing I struggle to understand. It's a thing I struggle to come to terms with, because tell me why a people would ordinarily just want to sit down, keep calm, stay quiet, and almost do nothing, and just want their situations to ordinarily get better. It cannot get better that way. And looking at simple solutions would not ordinarily also come to help us. We need to look at ourselves squarely. We need to sit down on a round table and have serious conversations. Conversations we've refused to have for the longest. Conversations we've refused to tell ourselves we ordinarily need for the longest. Conversations we ordinarily should be looking at. But then, the levels of fear and the levels of nonchalancy, our levels of nonchalant attitude as it concerns our collective problem is indeed troubling, it's indeed disturbing, because tell me why a people ordinarily destined to be one, ordinarily supposed to be united, ordinarily supposed to be together, have just come down to be as divisive, as disunited as we at the moment are. It goes down to the fact that we've sought out for simple solutions. We've not looked at our situation squarely. We've not looked at our problems deeply, because when you begin to look at the problems of a place like our country, when you look at the problems surrounding the different African countries, it goes down to talk about integration and disintegration. It goes down to talk about unity, and it goes down to talk about division, different ways of ethics and different ways of getting to do things. We have to break these jinx. We have to break the problems we ordinarily have come to live by now, and the problems we've now come to accord ourselves as the way forward. It is not the way forward. The way forward is we looking at our lives, looking at ourselves squarely and saying, we can grow together. If we ordinarily want to grow together, we can live as one. If we want to live as one, because as much as we continue on this particular path, as much as we continue on these particular ways of doing things, as much as we continue on this path of confusion, as much as we continue on this particular path of not looking at our lives and looking at the things we ordinarily should do and trying to do them, as much as we continue to look at ourselves with the eyes we ordinarily shouldn't be looking at ourselves, we will continue to go down, and our leaders will continue to trample on us, and margin between the rich and the poor will continue to be widened and continue to be larger and larger, because we are not even ready yet for what we ordinarily should be doing. We are not even ready as a people to face our problems collectively and to treat our matters squarely. So that the next time when you see a celebrity and you see lots of security around such a person, just know that the country has failed, because the amount of security such people get to control and the amount of power they get to wield with those guns hanging around the shoulders and the hands of those security operatives around them is something you don't want to know about. It's something you don't really want to see come into full force. But we see it. We see it come into full force when somebody is driving on his own lane, but then you see siren getting to like clear the road and giving signals that people should ordinarily get to get to depart the roads because someone seemingly important is passing. We see this in the fact that people are traumatized, people are confronted and are told all the despicable and inhumane things that can be said to a people simply because a group of persons wield the power of the military, they wield the power of the police, walking around with them. You see this in the levels of uncertainty that is the life of those who hang around such celebrities, because every now and then you get to hear of accidental discharge, you get to hear of misfiring, you get to hear of miscalculated killing, you get to hear of stray bullets hitting where they shouldn't ordinarily be hitting in the first place. And as much as we continue to hear such stories, as much as we continue to hear such events, and as much as we continue to give ourselves the chance to ordinarily be maneuvered and be traumatized by this group of people, the longer our problems ordinarily continue to linger. Because these people get to follow these security operatives for reasons that we ordinarily know. There's insecurity in the land. There's insecurity in the land, and it comes from things we know. It comes from things like insecurity. And where does this insecurity stem from? It comes from our levels of division, our levels of ethical divide, and the ways we ordinarily get to look at life. The ways we don't want to look at things, the ways we ordinarily should be looking at things that we are not looking at things, the levels we ordinarily should be operating on are kind of different from the levels we are currently operating on. We look at our lives and we tell ourselves that we cannot really come to terms with ourselves. We cannot really understand ourselves. These are the things we tell ourselves, that our lives down here is so caught up within ourselves and ourselves alone that we cannot function together. But where on earth do you tell yourself you can't function together and then you want peace? You won't get peace. So you see the Southeast agitating from now till the next year because we have not really looked at the war. We have not really looked at the people down there. And this is even just beyond the war. We have not really catered for the needs of youths down there. We have not really taught them history the way we ordinarily should teach them history. We have not been a people so educated. Forget the PhDs and the masters we get to tell ourselves that we have come to have. How many of us can comfortably defend our certificates back home? How many of us graduated from Nigerian universities without the terror and the horror of things like malpractices? How many of us ordinarily passed from universities back home without getting to rub the palms and the bags of certain lecturers? So that those who ordinarily stand for upright stuff and stand for good stuff sometimes become like a joke to us because we don't even get to know and understand what their life ordinarily turns out to become. Because we sit down, we tell ourselves, we are all fine, we are all good, but then life don't present itself that way to us. Our lives become so traumatizing, our lives become so sad, our lives become so annoying, to the point whereby we think dividing ourselves continually is the only solution. What about trying peace? We've tried war, we've tried all the problems we think we can try, we've tried all the sorrows we think we can try, we've tried all the pains and we've tried all the annoying things that our lives ordinarily have presented to us. Why not try real peace? Why not try being sincere to ourselves? Why not for once we sit down and tell ourselves, you know what? There's food inflation, there's financial inflation, there's inflation generally in the land. We've not even come to even get to experience things like liquid, like milk itself, not powdered milk. We still live in times that look as though we are in warring zones, we're in places of war. Ikenna Oke, the Nigerian writer and novelist, would get to tell us that the fact that we have not even come to terms with the fact that powdered milk is not ordinarily what people ordinarily should take outside of warring zones and times of war, and yet we are still relying on that. Our levels of importations are going higher and higher. We get to import a lot of things we ordinarily don't even need. We import these things to the detriment of our own peace, to the detriment of our own life, to the detriment of the joys and the things we ordinarily should be doing as a people. We import things that we don't need. We just continue to import things because we cannot even produce these things. We want to sit down there and tell ourselves all we want to tell ourselves about the West. We want to sit down and tell ourselves all the things we want to tell ourselves about Asia. But the one thing we cannot take away from them is the fact that these people look at their problems, sit down with their problems and try to solve it. Whether they are using human ways of getting to solve the problems or they are abusing human strength and human bodies, it's a conversation for another day, but at least they give an attempt to solving their problems. What have we done? We sit down and we attack someone like P2B day in, day out, from the church down to the river, from the church to the Asu Rock, from the church to everywhere. We tell ourselves our problems are tied to different things than ordinarily what they are supposed to be. We look at the laws of physics and we laugh. That is if we even get to understand physics in Nigeria. We look at mathematics and we tell ourselves that we don't need this, we need spirituality, we need aligning ourselves to the gods and aligning ourselves to the ancestors. While these might not be problems, if they ordinarily are treated the ways they ordinarily should be treated, I won't be here angry, talking the way I'm talking. But it is not the case. We have given ourselves a tax different from the one ordinarily we were supposed to carry. And we've thrown away our own tax, and there's no better way to call that than being irresponsible. So for the greatest and the longest period of time, we have come to see ourselves be as irresponsible as we ordinarily shouldn't be. We have come to channel our attention to the wrong places as opposed to the right places we ordinarily should be channeling our attention to. We have channeled our minds and our hearts and our sinew and our individuality and everything that we ordinarily should be doing by ourselves. We've channeled this to our politicians and we've allowed ourselves with almost nothing. We've told ourselves that God, or the gods we get to ascribe ourselves to, are the things we ordinarily, are those who ordinarily should be responsible for our problems. Meanwhile, the gods cannot do anything for us. God cannot come down to do anything for us. We must do these things for ourselves. Else we continue to be as irresponsible as possible, as we ordinarily would come to allow ourselves to be. We need to study hard, we need to study well. As many Africans out there studying African studies, studying economics, studying philosophy, studying theology, we need to have this collective idea of how we want to see the world go. We must champion ourselves towards that particular direction because that is the only way we ordinarily can function as a people. That is the only way we ordinarily can grow. Because tell me how you want to grow. If you don't want to look at your problem squarely, tell me how you want to grow. If you don't look at your situation squarely, tell me how we want to grow. With the current social media charade we get to do and the challenges we get to do and the whole shift into things like content creation and we thinking that these are the ways and these are the things we ordinarily can do to push ourselves out of poverty. The joke is upon us. There's no way content creation is going to create wealth for the nation. Entertainment can do as much as it can do, but that is not where the jinx needs to be broken. The real problem of the country is far-reaching. The real problem of the country is devastating. And we're not even ready to have that conversation yet. We're not even ready to look at the core problems we have as a people. We're not even ready yet to respond to our problems. Because our problems are indeed real problems. But the ways we go about it, the ways we just pick up Nollywood movies and watch and we think that is all there is to this thing, the ways we just look at our government and we say, oh God, help us. The ways we go about our lives down here, rather than asking real questions and doing real studies and telling ourselves that we don't even know enough to be as comfortable and to be as happy as we are. Until we stop doing these things, we will continue to labor in vain. We will continue to produce graduates who ordinarily will not know their left from their right. We will continue to produce citizens, bring them into the world and allow them become almost anything. Because what is the ideology that governs a place like Nigeria? It's a question you need to answer. It's a question I myself need to answer. But it's a question we all must answer. And I bet you, we don't even have answers to these questions. And sometimes we're not even ready to be asked these questions. But it matters how we do our politics. It matters how our students go to school. It matters the roads we ordinarily come to have. It matters the transport systems we come to adopt. It matters the ideologies and the philosophies and the different ways we get to relate with our lives down here, now into the future, in relation to the past. It matters how we ordinarily must grow. It matters what we must do. But we don't do because we think all is well. All is not well. All is not well with us. All is not well with us as a people. All cannot be well with us as a people. Look around you. When was the last time you went to the hospital and you went to the hospital to receive treatment well? When was the last time you saw an ambulance, a real ambulance? When was the last time you as a human being had peace of mind? When was the last time you ate 3 square meals without ordinarily thinking of those you deceived to have what you came to have? When was the last time you did business genuinely and you got paid in a very serene and ethical way without having to rub hands and rub shoulders and eat with the devil? When was the last time you lived a normal life? When was the last time you actually prayed without asking God or the gods to do a thing or two for you? When was the last time you woke up without realizing that a place like Nigeria is devastating, that your dreams are suffocating and your children ordinarily would not come to have a just society? When was the last time you went to the hospital and you got treated? When was the last time you went to the market and you got what you needed within the confines of your monthly salary as a civil servant? That's the minimum wage. When was the last time you were able to save money outside your monthly expenditure? That is, if you have one. When was the last time at the end of the year you sat down and you told yourself, you know what, I think I'm saving for the future. I think I'm saving to build a new house. When was the last time you did all of this? If you cannot figure out when were the last times you ordinarily lived life normally, know that there's a problem already within the confines of where you find yourself and the place you now call Nigeria. Know that there are problems looming, and the levels of insecurity that we currently have will continue to grow, and our levels of economic divide will continue to widen, and our poverty index will continue to be increased. We will continue to increase continually, and our levels of church attendance at a point will increase, at a point will also drop, because people will come to despair, people will come to give up, people will come to ordinarily tell themselves all the things they shouldn't tell themselves. Because we are just brewing atheists in Nigeria who ordinarily shouldn't be, but who've just been faced with hardship and have been channeling all their attention and their hopes to God as it concerns what their religious leaders have told them, with no results. Because God will not come to do for us what we can ordinarily do for ourselves. Building of roads, building of schools, attending to our needs, fixing our problems down here. It is not a thing prayer can do either. Whether we believe this or not is another conversation all entirely. You can look to the US all you want. You can look to France all you want. You can look to Belgium all you care. You can look to China if that's where you find your hope. You can look to Italy. You can look to all the war powers you think they are doing well from a material standpoint. But what you cannot do and what you shouldn't do is to equate yourself and equate their progress and equate their livelihood and equate their peace to the fact that they prayed. No, it is not from there. They might have had the religious inclinations that allow them to build up ethical standard and ethical standpoints, but it is not from prayer. It is from the work of their hands. It is from what they did down here. It is from how responsible they became. It is the whole idea of night shifts and day shifts. It is how they ordinarily came to interact with their society that ordinarily gave them the success they are currently having. It is how they interacted with people in the last centuries that have passed, the last 500 years down here. It is their involvement in colonialism, it is their involvement in the exploitation of people and the dehumanization of different cultures and civilizations that have seen to it that they are reaping and benefiting from where they are at the moment. And so, if we must progress genuinely, if we must look at our lives and tell ourselves that we as a people can grow together and in peace too, we must come to look at what constitutes our problems. And our problems are many, my people. Divisions, tribalism, nonchalant attitude, mediocrity, looking at Igbos as if they are the problems of the country, our failures of leadership, indiscipline, corruption, nepotism, ethnic bigotry, insincerity, irresponsibility, poor standards of education, poor roads, poor public amenities, no hospitals, poor healthcare service, a dead of our brain tanks, a dead of our think tanks, allowing the best of us to get to live and the worst of us to continue to thrive. These are many more. These are many more the problems we have as a people. These are many more the issues we have. These are many more our problems. These are many more at the situation sometimes we have not come to look at our lives. We've not come to look at squarely. And so young men and women will continue to suffer. Young men and women will continue to die in a place like Nigeria for simple reasons that our leaders have not looked at our problems squarely. That we ourselves have not even governed our life well. That we ourselves are as dumb and as sad and as annoying as those we ordinarily judge. That we ourselves can grow together if we must ordinarily grow together. That we ourselves must grow together because we must grow together. We ourselves must stand tall. We ourselves must do all the things we ordinarily are supposed to do if we must see that things work out well for us. Because until we do that, there's no headway for us. Until we do what we are ordinarily supposed to do, we will continue to languish in pain and in sorrow and in sadness and in anger. Because tell me, which nation can stand strong with so much division and so much problems? Which nation can grow tall and stand strong and in peace as we ordinarily are? Which company can ordinarily flourish the way Nigeria is run? Which country can make strides and compete with the world with the ways we just get to do things with levity and as though everything is all right and everything is fine? Which nation? I have not seen any. No nation that would want to take itself seriously will do the type of things we do and expect a different result. No nation that ordinarily wants to take itself serious will live like we live life here in Nigeria and want progress. It will not happen. But we do it. And we seek for cheap solutions. We don't listen to ourselves. We don't see that we die daily. We don't see that there are no hospitals. We don't see that there are no roads. We don't see that these things don't exist. We don't look at our politics. We don't look at the policies our leaders get to make. We don't even listen to the news. How do you even want to do that when the average Nigerian struggles to survive and struggles to make ends meet? How do you even want to make peace and make progress? How? It's not even possible. But then we continue We walk around as if our lives are all good and everything around us is perfect. We live life with little or no concerns. We go about our daily lives living as if everything is all good and everything is all fine. But everything is not. Is it the same Nigeria where people drop out from school every day, where hookup is becoming a thing a whole lot of persons are beginning to engage in without fear or favor? Or is it another Nigeria that I don't know about? Is it a Nigerian I have friends who get to tell me how things ordinarily get to go? The Nigeria where I have cousins and family members in? Or a different one? Because our levels of comfort, our levels of relaxation, our levels of consciousness are so poor. Are things we ordinarily have not really looked at. And we live in a very, very pitiful period. We live in a very, very pitiful time. We live in a very annoying time we ordinarily have not even come to realize to even start with. And we must grow together. Else we labor in vain. Till things get better, Nigeria just continues to leave me in shame and to leave me in pain and to leave me in anger. Till we come together and fix our problems ourselves. Not waiting for the US, not waiting for China, not waiting for Singapore, not waiting for France. Cutting our costs of governance, cutting our personal cost and the way we get to spend money. Because there's a certain amount of wealth you get to find in a place like Nigeria, and you ask yourself, what are we doing down here? Why haven't we gotten the brains necessary to champion investments and to champion these things well? Why can't we look at ways that can bridge and close up the gaps we have in our poverty index? Why can't we make progress? Why can't we? Why can't we? It's a question I'm asking you. It's a question you should ask me. It's a question we must ask ourselves. Because why can't we grow? The answers are many. One of them still remains that we are very irresponsible. One of them still remains that our educational levels and the ways we ordinarily get to interact with education and enlightenment is still very below the benchmark of what we ordinarily need to drive ourselves out of our current problems, out of our current situations, out of our current reality that is so sad as Nigerians. I am Biringkpa bin Emeka, the mendicant. I am your brother. See you next time.